Good afternoon, I'm Anthony Lugg with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Mixed reactions from both parents and students following the resumption of face-to-face classes this morning. We visited 2 schools in Portland and it was observed the schools have implemented additional measures to ensure the safety of students and staff, but not everyone is comfortable with the move. So far, so good. That's how parents at the Boundbrook Primary School in Portland have described the resumption of face-to-face classes this morning. When our news team visited the school, both parents and students were masked up and sanitized at the school's gate. Temperature checks were being conducted. Parents were not allowed on the school's compound. The children were collected at the gate by teachers and brought to their respective classrooms. The school says this will be repeated when school is dismissed. Parents are comfortable with the measures.
The process seems like a safe one. The social distance is not many. In my child's class is 8 kids going to be in class today, so it seems okay somewhat. So we'll see from here how the process, how it goes. It seems safe so far.
I think it's a good idea. Plenty of persons don't think it's a good idea, but from my point of view, I think it's a good idea.
Why you say it's a good idea?
Because, as I say, no parent is allowed in the school, and so far it is healthy, because, with parents and children, sometimes we're going to be standing beside the students and all of that. I think it's good.
In addition to the mandatory wearing of masks, temperature checks, and sanitization, the Port Antonio High School has implemented an additional measure. Each grade has been assigned a specific day for face-to-face classes. This to prevent crowding in common spaces on the school's compound at any given time. One student had to go back home because his grade was not scheduled to have face-to-face classes today. But he told us he's in favor of face-to-face classes rather than online classes.
The online class, for me now, I have internet problem. Like my internet will go on and off, so that it's really complicated for me to get a whole day of the class.
Despite the safety measure put in place by the school, some students and parents are timid.
So everybody come to school and we don't know who can have the virus and who not have the virus, because they can check the temperature, but then still can have it and we don't know. So me kind of in between fear, not say fearful, but have caution about it.
Because they don't want anything to happen to your child and then get infected, or come home and you get infected also. We just have to take the chances. Not so confident sending her and not really want to send her, but just have to take some chances.
The COVID-19 pandemic has opened a can of worms for the education sector, and former president of the Association of Principals and Vice Principals, Linton Weir, says the Education Ministry needs to urgently address the matter. More in this report.
A new dilemma has emerged in the education sector due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fewer students are signing up for the Caribbean Secondary Examination Council CSEC and the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Exam CAPE. This was confirmed by the former president of the Association of Principals and Vice Principals and the current principal of Old Harbour High School in St. Catherine, Linton Weir. The COVID-19 pandemic has put a dent in the teaching and learning process since March last year, when the virus first entered the country. As a result, teachers and students have been utilizing virtual spaces to facilitate classes. But not all students were fortunate enough to participate in the new learning experience because of internet connectivity issues. Mr. Weir believes that is the reason why fewer students are signing up for the external exams. And according to him, other principals have reported a similar phenomenon.
The Ministry of Education would have shared with us repeatedly that they were going to put this tablet initiative on board. We still have not seen that as yet for students in grade 7 to 9 and those in grade 10 to grade 13. And based on our records, this year we have less of our young people participating. We have less of our young people paying for CSEC and CAPE examination. And I think we have more of our young people not paying for CSEC and CAPE simply because they don't think that they are ready, simply because they were not able to get online, simply because they don't have the instrument, that sort of a thing. So we are faced with a serious problem moving forward.
Mr. Weir says he's extremely concerned about the ability of students to access classes. He wants the Education Ministry to move quickly to fix the problem.
When you look at it close up, and I've been communicating with my colleagues, we don't have 100% compliance. We don't have 100% of our students online participating in the teaching and learning process. Here at Old Harbour High School, we only have approximately 69 to 70% of our students online. And if you look at our examination group, only 70% of our students are online, for whatever reason. The question you asked, if I think more of our young people will be participating this term, I don't think more of our young people will be participating. We would only be able to have more if the different things were in place. And we're talking about connectivity, the different instruments, that sort of a thing.
Prince Moore, TVJ News.
The president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Jasford Gabriel, says they will be asking for a pay increase in the impending wage negotiations with the government. The current 4-year wage contract ends on March 31. More in this report.
For years, the Jamaica Teachers Association, like other groups, have always complained about low wages. President of the association, Jasford Gabriel, says this year is not different, as very soon they will be asking for another increase. He did not say how much the teachers will be asking for, but says their request will take into consideration the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. Mr. Gabriel says teachers, like other professions, are under severe strain.
There has been a decline in terms of the living standard and certainly the disposable income of our teachers. The net effect of that is that we are finding it increasingly difficult to attract and retain our best teachers, and the rate of attrition is extremely high, and the number one reason is really the poor wages and working conditions. And so we understand that our economy would have been seriously affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, but we also understand and must put on the table the realities that are facing the teaching profession at this point in time.
Mr. Gabriel was also asked about the possibility of Saturday classes being used by more schools to make up teaching time.
Time is going to be needed to bridge the gaps. Certainly some gaps have been created. Again, schools will have to, with the assistance of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, do their assessments, determine how much time is needed and how this is going to be planned out in terms of the additional. Some of it may be during the week. It's possible that some weekend arrangements could be worked out. But again, this comes down to local schools and their boards and their capacity to be able to execute this.
In the meantime, the Ministry of Education is being asked to keep its primary exit profile PEP exam schedule flexible.
The plan is to have as many of the PEP students coming out for face-to-face classes early in January so that they can be ready for these exams. Any pushback as far as those engagements are concerned could again affect that kind of schedule. I think it's very, very important that there be some kind of face-to-face engagement to prepare the students for these PEP exams, and so that schedule has to remain fluid as well.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
And we take a break. More stories when we return. Welcome back, continuing the news. The latest COVID-19 data from the Ministry of Health shows that another 154 new cases were recorded yesterday. This has pushed the total number of cases to 13,203. A 9-month-old child is among the latest to test positive for the respiratory illness. Westmoreland recorded most of the cases, followed by Manchester and Kingston and St. Andrew. Meanwhile, the country's COVID-19 death toll remains at 304. No death was recorded yesterday. However, the health ministry says 2 deaths are under investigation. There is a call for the government to consider extending the travel ban on more countries other than the United Kingdom. Associate Professor of Occupational Health and Safety at the University of Technology, Dr. Alverston Bailey, has issued a strong warning about the dangers of the new variant of COVID-19. Shamela Pullen reports.
On Saturday, the Health Ministry confirmed that 4 of the travelers on the last British flight to Jamaica have tested positive for the new variant of COVID-19. Associate Professor of Occupational Health and Safety at the University of Technology, Dr. Alverston Bailey, believes the holiday travel this season has the potential to rapidly increase the number of positive cases of the new strain. As such, Dr. Bailey says there might be need to extend the travel ban in place for the UK to other countries.
If the variant is now found in 31 countries, it means that the virus is spreading rapidly. And so the government will have to look critically at the countries which now have the variant and decide which one has a high prevalence of the variant and perhaps close our borders to them, because we are not prepared to cope with this additional challenge posed by the virus.
Dr. Bailey says at a minimum, all visitors and returning residents should present COVID-19 test results before entry, and they should be combined with random testing.
This new variant has the potential to cause what I could describe as a tsunami of new infections in Jamaica and might overwhelm our ailing health sector. My recommendation is that we should ensure that all visitors and returning residents to Jamaica have a valid COVID-19 test before they arrive here. And on arrival, selective random testing, say 1 in 10, of all visitors and returning residents should be done. And if positive, these tests should be subjected to gene sequencing.
He's pushing for more public education.
We also need, as a matter of urgency, to improve our messaging to sensitize the populace with the implications of this variant and the profound impact it might have on community spread of the virus. We need to remember that an increase in community spread will impair our ability to resuscitate the economy and definitely will retard our ability to reopen schools.
Shamala Pullen, TVJ News.
There are growing concerns that hospitals are running out of space due to an uptick in hospitalization. This follows a report by the Health Ministry that 2 hospitals have reached full COVID capacity and several others are currently above 80% capacity. Health facilities could be on the brink of collapse, with 2 facilities already at full occupancy levels.
To a point where if we have a significant surge, we won't be able to deal with these patients in hospital.
We won't be.
Dr. Manning also noted that hospitals are stretched, having to deal with complications that are not COVID-19 related. He says this has brought into focus the strain on the hospital resources.
In addition to the COVID patients, we have other non-COVID patients who require hospitalization, and in some hospitals, it's a challenge to find beds for them as well.
Dr. Manning believes that public cooperation is key in the fight against COVID-19. He's encouraging Jamaicans to follow the protocols set by the Ministry of Health. Chairman of the Western Regional Health Authority, Eric Clark, says the field hospital, which will be open in Falmouth, Trelawney later this month, will help ease the burden on hospitals out west. It was reported last week that the Savlamar Hospital in Westmoreland is beyond its COVID-19 isolation capacity and the general hospital capacity is near alert level.
We've been a bit proactive. By the middle of January, we'll have the field hospital in Falmouth up, which will be an additional 40 beds. We haven't needed it yet, but it will be there ready because we do expect an upsurge over the Christmas period coming into the end of January. So we will be ready for that. We prefer when it stays empty, but at least we have it, because on top of COVID, remember, we still have our regular accidents and injuries, sick people coming in, and we have to be very, very careful within our hospitals.
He was speaking in Westmoreland, where the Health Authority recently issued masks to residents as the parish continues to grapple with an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases.
6,000 face masks, 2,000 surgical masks, which we have given to the hospital, and we've called each of the member of parliaments from the parish in to give them 2,000 masks each, that while they are walking in their communities or driving, they will have masks to hand out to people, because we must practice wearing masks as almost a way of life. It should be the new norm for us here now.
The Health Ministry will be rolling out its public education campaign in the coming weeks as the country gets ready to vaccinate Jamaicans against COVID-19. Roughly 16% of the Jamaican population is expected to be vaccinated. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton gave an update at a press conference recently.
In the coming weeks, we will begin to sensitize the population with better particulars around the vaccines, the availability, the nature of the vaccine. Hopefully we'll address some of the queries or concerns that persons have. There are a number of attempts at creating a vaccine. I think the last report I saw was 150, but just over 50 that are being monitored by the World Health Organization / PAHO.
In the meantime, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Besesa McKenzie has reminded Jamaicans that the first phase of the vaccine will be administered by April this year.
What we have heard that by the second quarter of the calendar year, that we would be receiving the first set of vaccines under the COVAX facility. And this has increased. Initially, it was 1% that we would receive in the second quarter, but this has now increased to 5%. And what you would find is that as more vaccines are approved, more manufacturing occurs, that the numbers may change.
In news overseas, Israel has vaccinated more than 1 million people against COVID-19. Now, Israel said 2 million people will receive a 2-dose COVID-19 vaccine by the end of January. More from the CNN.
A pop-up vaccination centre in Tel Aviv's main square. A sure sign that Israel has no intention of slowing down its turbocharged campaign to be free from COVID-19.
Since opening on Thursday, thousands of people have streamed through what is one of the city's biggest makeshift vaccination centres. All they have to do is present proof of their appointment, they fill in a health declaration form, and then they're shown to one of these booths where they receive the first dose of the coronavirus vaccine. After that, they're asked to come here, a waiting area for just 15 minutes to ensure there's been no adverse reaction, and then they go on their merry way.
Aside from the needle, everyone was thrilled at this first step towards a return to normality. So what's the secret?
We got prepared very early, understanding that we are in very small countries and companies would rather sell the vaccine.
To news in sports now. A new tote board valued at approximately $40 million will be installed at the Caymanas Park within the first quarter of this year. This, according to General Manager of Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited, Lorna Gooden. Denise Walters reports.
Punters at Caymanas Park will soon have a new tote board to view race day information, as the current board has been down for approximately a year and a half. General Manager at SVREL Lorna Gooden says the parts for the old board are hard to source and it will have to be changed.
The existing tote board is a relic of the past. It has been damaged for over a year now, and we have found it difficult to find the replacement parts. So what we're doing now is to move into the ultra-modern digitalization, and we're going to be replacing the tote board in keeping with our enterprise development of the track.
A tote board provides race day information on odds, results and dividends to punters at the track. A new digital screen will replace the current board, which is situated on the infield at Caymanas Park.
It's a screen which will be used to display the tote information, and we're looking to do that sometime in the first quarter of 2021 in keeping with the digitalization of Caymanas Park.
Gooden notes that there are plans for the board.
What we're looking at from a nostalgic point of view is to try to preserve some aspect of the board in some way, shape and form to show the public and people to come what was there and to just give it a historic feel. So we're looking on preserving it, possibly not necessarily in the present position that it is, but in another place where we can display it and give pictures and cards of the existing tote board.
The tote board has been at the track for more than 30 years and was damaged by a lizard in August 2019. Denise Walters for TVJ Sports.
And that's the midday news. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for primetime news. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.